After more than 40 years in extreme isolation, a prisoner has now been moved into a different system of management. Reports say that he struggled with the change. Reports said that he's gone on a hunger strike. And reportedly, he doesn't even want to mix with other prisoners. So here's the question. If something goes wrong now, is that on him? Or is that on the system that changed how he was managed after 4 decades? Today, we're talking about Robert Maudsley. His case begins in 1974 when Robert Maudsley kills a man in a community. He's convicted of manslaughter on grounds of diminished responsibility. That means the court accepted that his mental state is reduced to a point where his criminal responsibility is not quite there. That means that he's not fit to stand trial. He's then sent to Broadmoor, a high secure psychiatric hospital. At this stage, the system isn't really treating him as a standard prisoner, but as someone requiring still psychiatric care and containment. And importantly, his first known victim is not actually officially confirmed as a sex offender, despite later myths around his case. Now, whilst in Broadmoor, he kills again, another patient who's been convicted for sex crimes against children. After that second killing, he is assessed as fit to stand trial. Now, that does not mean that he's all of a sudden mentally well. It's just a legal threshold. It's a case of, does that person understand court proceedings, follow evidence, and instruct the legal counsel accordingly? And apparently, at that time, he was able to do those things. And that decision moved him out of hospital law and into the prison system. Then he's transferred to HMP Wakefield, known as the Monster Mansion. And at that stage, something really important happens, because he's still able to mix on a normal wing, which that shows you that the system had not quite yet escalated him into that permanent isolation. But in 1978, he kills again. 2 prisoners on the same day inside custody. And from that moment, the system changed everything about how he was managed. And what followed is one of the most extreme segregation regimes in the UK prison system. What you need to understand is, the segregation isn't just one thing, it's a range of controls. In extreme cases like Maudsley, it meant almost no contact with other prisoners, tightly controlled movement, constant observation, and a routine designed to eliminate opportunity for violence. That is no longer about punishment, it's about containment. Because once someone has demonstrated lethal violence inside 2 different secure environments, the system stops asking, how do we rehabilitate them? And starts asking, how do we prevent it from happening ever again? Because killing 1 person within custody is very rare. But killing 2 people on the same day, in a way that prison officers don't realise, that's beyond extremely rare. And here's the uncomfortable reality. There is no actual fixed time limit on extreme segregation in cases like this. It's just reviewed regularly, and reviews don't actually guarantee change. If risk remains, restrictions remain. And over time, that becomes less of a temporary measure and more of a permanent system of containment. Because the alternatives are quite frankly very limited. General population, way too dangerous. Hospital placement requires strict legal criteria, not just the risk level. So what's left is long-term control. Then, reports suggested in April 2025, he was moved from HMP Wakefield to HMP Whitemoor. And there is no official explanation as to why that change actually happened. Some reporting suggests internal management or regime adjustments following disputes over his conditions, quite rightfully so. Since then, he's apparently had no visits, went on a hunger strike, and lost his privileges, and now has to mix with other people, something that apparently he really doesn't want. And you need to remember who we're talking about here. We're talking about someone who was once dubbed Hannibal the Cannibal. Mind, despite how widely it circulates online, there is actual no evidence in court records or even prison documentations that Moses ever committed cannibalism, so that's more of a myth. This is where this case becomes uncomfortable, because after 40 years of extreme isolation, you now have a system changing how someone like this is managed all of a sudden. So if something happens again, is that really down to the individual? Or maybe the system, who now decided to change something it's kept stable for over 4 decades. And before I wrap this up, hi, my name is Dagna, and I was a prison officer in the UK for almost 6 years. I've stood on the inside of the system, and I've seen what the headlines miss. This is Inside Out Justice when we say the quiet part out loud.